this is EA Sports F1 25, and I'm so, whoa. Who is this? Bro, that is not Oscar Piastri, that is Cillian Murphy. Oh my God, what are they doing? All right, so option 1, Alex Albon, solid choice for a teammate, but option 2?
No need to ask, he's a smooth operator.
And first time out on the track, got the engineer talking to us, telling us don't screw it up. And I'm going to tell you right now, we screwed it up big time. Way too slow. You need to work on that corner, and that's how it works. And coming into this corner, as you can see, I need to get my braking zones down. I said, more grip you have, and it feels so foreign. But yes, once you're like over realizing that you have to hit the brakes, I have no idea what happened there. I skyrocketing back up to almost half a second. We cross the line, and we are, oh my God, 10. We are right back on their tail. Now, yellow flag has come out. Obviously, something has happened on the track in front of us, but it keeps moving forward, so I assume that it's someone moving. And obviously, I was not expecting that. Lando, oh my goodness. Hulkenberg goes for a move on Ocon. We're just going to watch from the distance, see if we can make an opportunity out of this. Try to find our ideal racing line, power out early. Not looking like it's going to happen, but if we press overtake here and get on the DRS, we might have gotten past. Thinking about it, huge dive bomb onto Hulkenberg and barely making that apex. Absolutely the latest of late breaks. Our ability, he's right behind us, doesn't try and move on the inside, gonna slot right behind us, going into what is realistically the final overtaking opportunity of the track. He's right behind us. I stick my car in the middle, forcing him to choose a side. He chooses the right-hand side. I brake early, braking even earlier than possible, letting him fly around me, and then switch back complete the old. But we come across to finish P12 in our first race. Hello everyone, CD Racing here. Welcome back for episode 2 of our EA F1 25 career mode playthrough. Now, as you guys saw last episode, definitely eventful for our first race. We made it to make it into Q3, didn't manage to grab any points, but for our career debut, especially in the current Williams, we will take that all day long. Now, episode 2, on our way to China. In my opinion, a much more difficult and technical track than Australia, so we'll see how we navigate it. But enough talking, enough yakking. I know y'all are here for the action, and I will see y'all in China. All right, so back at HQ, before we actually leave for the weekend, we have unlocked new drip. Yes, new drip alert, and that dark blue with the Williams livery, I'm liking it. We're going to go ahead and equip that one. Now, looking over anything else, it says we have a new podium emote, but, I mean, subscribe to CD Racing. Look at that, clear as day. I mean, we're going to check out the new one, but yeah, I'm sorry. If this channel ever blows up and I become a real racer and I pull that out on a podium, hit me on the head as hard as possible and give me the old factory reset, because that is whack. But going back to our virtual career, we've got things to do in terms of improving the team. As you can see, Williams sitting pretty much dead middle of the pack right now, very neck and neck with Alpine and Aston Martin, basically meaning it's up to the drivers every weekend. But we'd like that little bit of an edge. Looking over some of the progress and things we're working on right now, as you can see, Sainz currently monitoring the cable assembly upgrade, and he's already done floor stiffening. So it looks like he might be taking a little bit of a chassis specific approach, whereas I have always been more of a downforce kind of guy. Powertrain is cool, but I feel like there are a lot more technical tracks more than there are tracks where you just need a rocket ship. You know, only things coming at the top of my head, Monza, maybe Spa, tracks like that where a huge power engine can make a big difference. However, downforce is always useful. So I'm thinking we're going to go ahead and buy these secondary wing flaps, lock those in. But just real quick, looking over the rest of the upgrades, I know Sainz is doing these cable assemblies. Powertrain and durability important, but at this stage of the season, it looks like reliability hasn't been a huge problem for us. I say that like we haven't only done one race, but look at the gap on the right-hand side that we will gain in aerodynamic ability just from this one upgrade. That's going to shoot us above minimum 2 teens, and that is what we are going to choose. So going to go ahead and skip to the end here and load in for our first practice session in China. Now, quick little warning coming up here that we'll read out to you. This weekend is a little different. I'm assuming if you're watching this, you do follow F1, but if you don't, or you just need a reminder of what's about to happen, China is a sprint weekend. What does that mean? Well, sprint weekends have different tire allocations to standard weekends. There are fewer sets in total to choose from, and there are additional restrictions on the use of tires during certain sessions. During qualifying sessions, only soft compound tires can be used outright. During sprint qualifying 1 and 2, only one new set of medium compound tires can be used per session, only mediums. During sprint qualifying 3, only one new set of soft compound tires can be used during a session. So, huge restriction on the amount of practice that we get this weekend and the tires that are available to us in those sessions. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think sprint weekends are so whack. But you didn't hear that from me. I love what Liberty Media is doing with the sport. Much wow. Very good structure. And now, looking over this melted candlestick of a track, we've got quite the task ahead of us. For nobody or for anybody that has raced in China before, you know, this first sector, that long sweeping corner, requires a lot of patience. Now, looking over some of our manufacturing experts before the weekend, we can set a goal for ourselves to better improve the development of our car. Drive 90 miles or keep the tires below 120 degrees Celsius. I'm going to drive 90 miles. 120 Celsius sounds kind of hot. I learned very quickly that in China, especially the rears, can get very, very warm. So, loading in for the practice session.
Hello and welcome to Free Practice 1 from Shanghai International Circuit here in China. Now, over 20 years ago, this reclaimed marshland became a state-of-the-art facility that has borne witness to some of the most crucial and compelling moments in racing history. Today, it's all about gathering data for the tyres in these cool temperatures.
All right, so first practice session of the weekend, and honestly, only the only practice session. It's a sprint weekend, like I've said, so we're going to make some adjustments to the car, mess around with some of the actual settings, and hold on.
I've had a chat with the R&D team about the new parts, and we're happy that they've been integrated into the car okay. With any luck, you'll be able to feel the improvement, so go and give them a try.
All right, so we will most definitely be giving those a try. New parts hopefully do warrant some sort of change that we notice over the course of this weekend, but that is yet to be seen. Now, what's going on here before we actually cut to the on-track action? Made some adjustments to the car. I'm not going to say anything specific. I just looked up a generic race tune for this car for the sake of not spending a long time tweaking this car, and I'm by no means a professional tuner. I just looked one up. I would encourage y'all to do that unless you really want to take this seriously, because I'm not the greatest at tuning these cars. I play a lot more rally than I do F1, so I'm used to sending cars to jump, not to stick to the ground as much as possible. But if you guys care about my actual tuning setups, I will leave them in the next video. But for now, let's get this car on track, huh?
Don't push the car just yet. Track is still green. Try to take it easy for the first couple of laps.
All right, so we have our instructions. First laps out in China. If you've never seen this track before, strap in. Now, my routine when I do these qualifying or practice sessions, that is, no matter how many practice sessions I have, especially if we have new parts on the car, do one lap, not a flying lap, just complete a lap around the circuit. And as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, this first section is wild. Massive understeer out of the pits. The tires are warm. I'm on the hardest compound available this weekend. And that was an awful line. Truth be told, just all over the place in the beginning here. The rear already getting loose. We have very minimal grip, that is. Overcast sky above us, meaning track temperatures are most likely going to be down. That is how it works in this game. Weather affects everything more than you'd think. And for now, just getting used to the track. You see the first section, very low speed. You got a hairpin there that opens up into a very aggressive entrance into what I'll just call a single S section, but at relatively high speed. You see taking that way too shallow, getting some dirt on that inside right tire there. And, you know, early goings here, very much so getting used to the track. I know the ideal racing line of this track, but applying it is easier said than done. And like I said, if you've never seen this track before, it looks weird as we brake far too late coming into this turn right before what we'll consider the second carousel of the course. And we have got dirt and grass all over our tires here. We're going to have to get these back into the pits and cleaned off. I'm sure they're going to be quite upset with us. But early goings here, not the greatest introduction to China. Very easy on the throttle out of this second carousel. Once you get the tires up to speed and you're, not full of dirt, that corner becomes very fun to get used to. You see me scrubbing around trying to get some of the dirt off these tires. We're going to go down the main straight. This back straight is 1 kilometer long, the entire straight. So in race pace with DRS and overtake on, we're hitting 205 miles an hour easy every time. That back straight is insane. Probably the most consistent overtaking opportunity as long as you get your line right out of that back sector. And like I said, usually we just do one lap and go back to the pits, but that first one was rough, a very poor introduction to the track. So let's lock in for the first time. Now again, I'm going to be very slow here, still getting used to my braking points on the car, but ideally this first sector, you want to be more towards the middle and just exercise patience and try to hit that right side apex as late as possible to set yourself up for the switchback into this left-hander, and patience on the throttle all the way out. And then once you think you have the grip, floor it out into a mini straight all the way down here, not getting into 8th place, braking in between the 150 and 100 meter board. Seems to be a little bit of a shallow slowdown. We're bookmarking all of this as we go on, thinking, all right, next time we'll try braking at the 100, see what happens, might be a little too hot. And right here into these S's, keeping it in 7th gear, thought about keeping it pinned, let off midway through the corner because I felt the grip slipping, and now trying to figure out the limits of these turns, these S's sections. It's all about patience, enter at the right speed, coast when you can, power out when you can, but figuring out where those markers are, that's what practice is all about. So these weekends where you only have one practice session, you got to learn the track with that car as quickly as possible and then worry about everything else, fuel, tire management, things like that, which is why we did an extra flying lap here. I need to know what the track feels like when I'm not all over the place. So coming towards the end here, that carousel section, like I said, hitting it just about right after we shift into 5th gear, and I'm flat pedal to the metal, basically the second half of that carousel onto this back straight, which just slingshots you here. And as you can see, DRS open, no overtake on 202.38 miles an hour in the speed trap. Quite the entrance there. And that is our first flying lap in China. Now we're going to go ahead and skip to a couple laps later because really we just got used to the track and did some practice programs. So let's see if anything exciting happened for the rest of this practice session. All right, so loading into a little bit later in the practice session, I've got a couple more laps under my belt. You see, I actually just purpled the last sector on that last lap. I'm currently sitting P5. So compared to everyone else, we are figuring out this track a little bit, but the laps are still sketchy at best. You see that trying to figure out the patience and timing on this section is still very hard. Hit it decently there. Powering out, I knew I was doing okay. Tried to get on the gas as early as possible, and shifting into 4th. Power stays consistent.
We're seeing major front wing damage. Box, box, box.
Yeah, so major front wing damage indeed. Let's get a little bit of a third-person perspective, see what happened here. As you see, sticking to the outside of the track, just got on the power. Maybe dipping that tire into the grass is what caused it, but I think I was slipping before that happened. And that may not have ended our practice session, but it did end us trying anything crazy. Spent the rest of the session just trying to focus on consistent lap times. Tried a couple laps on the soft tire, finished middle of the pack. Everyone went on softs towards the end, so I think that reflected qualifying quite well. I think I finished that session P8, and if we could finish P8, that would be great. But yes, qualifying, you heard me right. In a sprint weekend, we get one practice session, and now we qualify for the sprint. I know it's a little weird, but that is what's going to happen. Sprint qualifying in its entirety coming at you right now.
Welcome along to Shanghai, ladies and gentlemen, where it's Chinese Grand Prix weekend. But before we can race, we need to qualify. And who's going to take that coveted pole position? How will our grid line up? We're about to find out. Welcome to qualifying.
All right, so no messing around. We had no more adjustments to make, no more fuel to shave from the car. It is qualifying time now. This is qualifying for just the sprint. So worst case scenario, I absolutely bottle it, qualify P20. I'm in a bad looking spot for the sprint itself, but not the race where more points are on the line. So might not get an actual practice session, but I do get extra shot at qualifying, which is always going to help your race. So first lap out here on the mediums. Remember these rules. We only get to qualify on the mediums for at least sprint qualifying 1 and 2. So should we make it to sprint qualifying 2, we're still locked to the mediums. So got to get used to these wheels and tires, and that's exactly what we're doing on this outlap. Getting a somewhat baseline view of where my braking zone should be, because we did not get access to the mediums during practice. So I know in my head, obviously, it's a little bit quicker than the hard, a little bit less than the soft, but as far as how that actually translates to the car, that's what we're figuring out right now, although they are a little cold in theory and retrospect. As you see, we dipped that left-hand tire into the grass once again. And I hope y'all don't mind the look at that, because it's going to happen a couple more times over the course of this weekend. Things get rowdy in many different locations, but decent braking into, I guess that's the chicane into the carousel, and then immediately getting sloppy on the outside. We're going to let Sonoda go right past us. Don't want to impede him for any reason. And we're just going to sling ourselves down this back straight. And I won't always leave the warm-up lap in for qualifying, but I wanted to kind of walk you through my mindset and mentality as we get through the warm-up. Remember to turn your ERS deployment to completely off over your warm-up lap so you've got as much juice as possible. Braking hard at the 150 line, slotting in very nicely to the apex. Definitely noticing that when we get ready to do our flyer and getting ready to cross the line. Hot lap on, ERS ready to go. Right behind Sonoda. Might catch a little bit, hopefully, of some wind breakage and not us getting in the dirty air and just getting completely stumped. So going into the flying lap, into the carousel, braking hard after the 50 point and just slowly letting off the brake. Now it's all about patience through this section. Just guide the car, hit your downshifts, nail your corner right on the inside, swing it back to the left, a little wide there. It's going to have to affect how we get back on throttle, getting back on as early as we can, powering out of that section into this little mini straight. Now watch your speed on the left-hand side, braking hard just a little bit before the 100-meter board, barely getting the car slowed down and turned in right there. That was probably the limit of where we can brake in that section, but that is the fastest way to do it. So a little bit of luck there because that was not intentional, I promise. Now, into the S's section, keeping it in 7th gear through the first section, down into 5th gear through this section, feather the throttle, power for just a second, down into 3rd gear, sling it back to the right, and then you want to be flat over here using all of the track to power out to this back straight. Very solid fast lap from us right now. Braking right before the 100-meter board into the chicane for the carousel. Slot the car in, make sure you hit both curves, and then early on the throttle, but patience is key into 3rd gear. Don't want to floor it too early. And then once you've got the speed, power out, use all of the track, overtake turns on for even more speed, watching the DRS line, see how quickly we can hit it. Immediate activation. And here's where the speed just climbs and climbs and climbs, hitting 205 miles an hour. Hard on the brakes right after the 150-meter board. Struggle to get the car slow down and turn in, but hit that apex A-OK, and then patience on the throttle on your exit. Getting a little bit of wheel spin in 2nd there. We're definitely going to note that for future laps. And then flying back over this first section, all of the track into DRS, open it up, and that is 2nd place. Now, granted, still 6/10 behind Sonoda. The lap felt quick. It looked like we were doing something worth keeping note of there, and we're going to see how that transpires as everyone crosses the line. All right, so looking over the track map, you see track very busy at the moment, but we care about are the times. Carlos currently ahead of us by almost an entire second. I thought that lap was pretty quick, but we are 1.5 seconds off of theoretical pole, even though this is only the first practice or sprint qualifying session. Quite the gap to the leader, and obviously if Sainz can be as close as he is, then we can too. So an improvement to be made, as many people have not even crossed the line yet. So our current position down in P8 is definitely not safe, and we only get the one set of mediums. So first lap might actually be the most important. We're going to see if we can improve on our 2nd attempt and make sure that we can get into sprint qualifying too. Because if I can go this entire first season without getting knocked out in Q1, I think that's still pretty realistic for where Williams is at right now. And I think it's also a pretty good goal to set for myself. So use mediums, 2nd attempt. Let's see how it goes. All right, so jumping on, getting ready for our flying lap. As you can see, we have fallen down to P11 as everyone sets their time. So not necessarily in the drop zone, but we want to make sure that we can give the best lap that we can because people tend to kick it up a notch on their final flying lap. So 2 minutes to set a time worthy of Q2, and that is what we're going to do right now. You see first section, trying our best to remain patient, gaining about 2/10 into the actual first chicane, and then losing a little bit of time on the exit. When your line varies as much as mine does, sometimes it looks like you're gaining time, and then you lose it right back because of the exit. But at the moment, almost 2/10 on our current fastest time. Quite the improvement if we can just hold it there. Breaking into this section, we nailed it last time, and just about the same this time. Going right back to 2/10 advantage. Like I said, when your lines are varying, in back-to-back runs, things can get sketchy. Getting my wheel on the inside line there, having to catch the car, and you see losing a little bit of time there from all of that messing around. Going into this section right here, you want to go in on this left, all the way out to the right, power out, overuse all of the track, just like that, and still just about neck and neck with our previous time. But an improvement has to be made if we actually want to see ourselves through here. Breaking into that section, a lot better than last time out. Almost 3/10 gain from that one corner. So I don't know what we did breaking into that corner last time, but it was the wrong thing to do. Now, leaving the carousel, getting our battery turned all the way up as quickly as possible, powering our way down to the DRS line, almost up about 3.5 seconds on our, or 3.5 tenths on our last lap, which is a huge improvement. Again, watching your braking references right after the 150 meter board, it is hard on the brakes. Let out for the chicane, power out with patience. In second gear, again, wheel spin on second gear, still have to be quite aware of that. Braking in right before the 50 meter board, sling it in, out, and then power over the course. And in that last sector, almost 8 tenths up on our previous time, netting us 6th place right behind Sainz. All right, so looking over the results, as you can see, 5th and 6th respectfully for the Williams duo. Pretty solid. Now, this is just sprint qualifying. One, it doesn't actually matter for our finishing position, but we didn't get kicked out first, and that is obviously quite the start. So sprint qualifying 2, let's see how we do out on track. All right, so coming in hot to the final hard braking chicane at the end of the back straight. Braking very hard early to make sure that I could get some temperature into the tires while not locking up. And now we power out for what is our first flying lap of sprint qualifying 2. Big time here. Now, making it into Q3 is not a massive priority. I think just placing decently in SQ2 is still our realistic goal. But if we can manage Q3, that will be quite the improvement. Like I said, tricky track, aggressive AI. I actually turned them up like 2 or 3 notches on difficulty after Australia, because I want these races to be interesting and realistic. Keep me on my toes. I shouldn't be placing top 5 every single race. I know Williams is better this season, but not the greatest. But speaking of the greatest, qualifying looking decent for this first lap right here, trying to get our braking markers down. I now have a couple laps under my belt in the medium tires, and I know what to expect. So for our first flying lap of SQ2, trying to keep it neat, trying to keep it tidy, just send it into this S sections here, letting off the gas lightly and powering out early, able to stay flat to the floor in 7th for most of that section, breaking a straight line down into 5th, and then patience, quick blip of the throttle, and then quickly downshifting into 3rd. Hard under braking, patience on the throttle. You want to be able to floor it right off the end there, use all of the track limits, and then watch your braking point. You want to brake a little bit before the 100 meter board, slowly turn the car in for the chicane, and then flick it back for the carousel. Now that was a purple sector in the 2nd section, so that is obviously quite the improvement there. I noted that we were a foot to the floor of that entire early S, and it looks like that has netted us quite the time advantage. Now going down the back straight, battery turned all the way up, DRS as soon as you can, push ourselves to 200 and do I see 208 miles an hour, maybe 209. Absolutely flying down the back straight. Now we're hard on the brakes at the 150. Very squirrely on the exit there, and we are going to try our best to salvage this lap as far as timing goes, because we do not want to waste a purple sector. So DRS open early, stay in a straight line, and that is the fastest lap so far, and that is quite the start to SQ2. Let's see where that actually puts us. Just going to return to the garage immediately, skip all the funny business. We've made our laps. We're going to go ahead and look over the timing board. Right now, as you can see, track relatively clear, only 9 out of the 15 drivers out on track right now, but what we really care about are the standings to everyone else. And as you can see, oh my God, Carlos Sainz blowing us out of the water again with our time, definitely making us feel bad as a teammate, but we are not deterred. All that shows us is that there is potential for something greater, and you might be thinking, what are you doing? What I'm doing is only doing 1 lap in qualifying 2. I felt confident about that lap, and I didn't want to waste the medium tires because we're big braining it. We want to have a fresher set of mediums in case things get crazy in the race. And as you can see, worked out well for us. Saved excess wear on the tires and managed to make it into sprint qualifying 3. This is where all the money is made. Now, I have felt really good on this course as the weekend has gone over. And now that we have access to the softs, I know this is when things need to get real. We only get... Ideally, our first lap matters the most here because 2nd lap on softs, it's going to be worn down. So let's get out there, let's do what we do best and see where we can put this car. All right, so jumping on very much so later into the qualifying session, a little bit of miscommunication from our engineer. Did not tell us that there was a car on a flyer approaching us on our first flying lap, and I had to dive bomb out of the way to avoid them. Actually got on the grass, and I figured, you know what, let's just not risk that lap. I felt some bad juju, went back to the pits and said, you know what, the first lap matters most anyways. We're on the softs, let's not waste excess wear. I want to make sure that my 1 lap counts. So coming into the end of qualifying here, 2 minutes left to cross the line to actually be counted for a flying lap. Now, considering that we're on the back straight, we're going to hit that no problem, but I wanted to emphasize we have 1 flying lap to put ourselves in the best position possible for the sprint. Not maximum points up for grabs, but our first points up for grabs, and that's all that matters to us. We're racing for us and no one else right now because we need to prove to the team that we are not dead weight. One lap to put it all together for sprint qualifying. Let's see exactly how we put this together.
Yeah! That's what I'm talking about, boys. Outstanding, outstanding. Simply insane. P2, baby. Let's get it.
Yeah, so as you can hear after the post-line radio, we were elated. That is P2
And that's it
in
for
sprint qualifying.
Plenty more
My
coming up over the
lord,
rest of the
was that
weekend.
lap
So we'll see you all
just
tomorrow.
absolutely tooth and nail. And Sainz, unfortunately, as soon as we are able to flip it around, falling off the pace considerably. He was, around 5 to 7 tenths off the pole every time. And then when it finally mattered, I think that was 1.2 seconds. So an unfortunate fall from grace from Sainz right at the end, but he's still in a decent position, maybe to pick up some points in the sprint. And if not, he knows what he needs to do for the big qualifying. But now it is sprint time. I am so excited to get this underway because it's about time that we go racing. And because this is a sprint weekend, I already know this episode is going to be long, but 10 laps to push our way through the field, finally bag our first points in Formula One. I say finally, it's our second race at Williams, but we want those points nonetheless. Let's get to it.
So it's all about speed in today's sprint. Not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top? We're here in the Yangtze River Delta today, home of the 16 corners that make up the Shanghai International Circuit. 54% of this 3.3-mile lap is taken at full throttle, and we'll be getting up to speeds of around 200 miles per hour with DRS assistance down the back straight before the cars brake into the tight hairpin at turn 14. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Davies completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Verstappen, Hamilton, George Russell and Leclerc, Tsunoda, Piastri, Sainz and Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Fernando Alonso, Hülkenberg, Esteban Ocon and Stroll, Bortoletto, Gasly, Liam Lawson and Jack Doohan. Hadjar and Ollie Behrman rounds off the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out. And alongside me today, former Formula One driver and former world champion too. See, told you I'd give you a big intro. Anthony Davidson, hello. Well, they say that
All right, so promise you I didn't skip that audio. The game just decided that I did need to listen to it. So, sprint race ahead of us. Not the biggest deal, but points on the line nonetheless. Pit stop strategy does not matter. Nobody's boxing in this race at all. We're going to look at the fuel load. Take off quite a bit. They had us 2.5 laps over the fuel load. Absolutely no shot we get anywhere near that. Now, playing it safe because I didn't do many practice programs. I think I overfueled the car by 0.4 laps or 0.4 liters, whatever the measurement is. But it's time to go. Let's do this. All right, lights come up. Hold your revs. Get ready to launch the car. Reaction time as quick as possible. Lights go down. Slam the clutch down. Slowly accelerate. A little bit of wheel spin going into third, but getting the grip sooner and shooting up the inside of Lando on the brakes early. He goes up the outside, leaves the door open, and we're just going to feather the throttle, make sure our car is alongside him, and just like that, we lead the sprint race here in China. Early aggressive moves from us nets us first place, locking into the little mini straight here. We got decent acceleration out of the end of the carousel. Now we just need to lock in, hold our position as long as possible. Now, realistically, we know our race is not with Norris or Verstappen, but being in the lead in lap 1 nets us a position to hold position as long as possible. Going through this first SS section, remember, the car is only fueled for 10 laps and we are on medium, so grip and pace out of the box is going to be a lot faster than you might expect on a usual race weekend. And as you see, making the most of it, getting a little squirrely on the exit of this section right here. Had to let off the gas, snap the car back, but managed to catch it while not losing too much speed. Hard on the brakes into this second carousel section. A little late on the brakes, had to let off very late there, kind of missing the apex there, and now into the second carousel. Just patience. Ease your way back onto this back straight. Overtake button on before we hit the DRS line to get as much speed advantage as we can on this back straight. And now we just park it and relax, and that is lap 1 down, leading the race. So will Lando try and move on the inside here at the end of lap 1? He thought about it for a second, continues late on the brakes, pushes us out wide. Not much we can do about that one. Couldn't really defend against that either. And like I said, our fight is not with Lando. We are not going to sacrifice overall pace for one position here because we know realistically qualifying was a little bit lucky for us yesterday. I know the pace is strong, but that was a bit wild. DRS enabled, so Norris behind us, even more of a threat. Now, our hope here to hold position is that he will fight with Verstappen, but he is apparently very keen on fighting us, working his way up the inside, very similar to what we did lap 1, and we do not assert ourselves dominantly enough. Contact on the front right side there, minor damage to the front wing, but it looks like we're going to carry on. It is just a sprint, and we managed to deal with wing damage last race, lost a lot of pace, but this damage seems significantly less severe. And early goings here cannot notice a difference in pace. So we're going to take that knock as a little bit of a learning lesson and truck on our way. And no! Oh my God. This is the biggest L of the weekend. Oscar Piastri out of the session, lap 2 in the sprint race. Now, obviously, as far as headcanon goes, that's actually pretty good for us. That's one less position to worry about. But in real life, we love to see Oscar succeed. I am the biggest Piastri stan this planet will ever see, and even in the game, I will get sad if he retires. But as far as our career goes, lap 2, lock in. We've got some information to think about here. Norris in front of us, Verstappen behind. Again, fighting with these guys is not the smart move. We should not risk our pace at all to let these guys go by. Let them do their thing, stay in their wake and catch their DRS, exactly like I'm doing with Norris here. You see me not wasting the battery. He actually leaves the door open. And if the gap exists, we will send. And that is exactly what happened there. Posted and sent. Ready to go. That is us back in the lead of this sprint race. I said that the race was not with the McLarens, but if they're going to leave the door open like that, we take that all day. Getting a little bit over the curb there at the end. Their tires were a little warm, kind of understeered off the track there. But going into the carousel for lap 3, Lando immediately shooting back up the inside, very close to contact there. Managed to get away without any. Remember, we still have a little bit of damage on that front right wing, but luckily, most of these corners, we won't necessarily feel it too poorly. In fact, there aren't many corners at all on this circuit. It's a deceivingly complicated course. You realistically have this hairpin right here as we slowly ease onto the brakes, making sure that we do not nail Lando right there. But like I said, you have this hairpin, and then you've got the series of S's, which once you understand the line, becomes a very connected corner. This corner kind of just gets taken as one long flowing corner. and you've got the hard braking into this corner right here, and the way that you treat the exit in these high downforce cars, even though this is technically 2 corners, the exit makes it feel like one long one. As oh my god, almost die for sure, losing position to Verstappen, but we managed to keep the car out of the wall. And as you can see, the rear tires are hot after that, almost 100 degrees Celsius at the moment. We are absolutely cooking those rear tires, not the way we wanted to lose a position going into the back straight. And now we have a little bit of a gap to Verstappen. Hamilton right behind us. We are going to have access to DRS and overtake, and as you see, Hamilton still closing that gap. Thought about the move for just a second, moves back down on the inside. We're going to give him the space, but we're also going to prioritize our own exit, and it looks like he does not get that move done, as we are still struggling with rear end grip. We got those rear tires so hot, and we are going to basically have to spend the rest of this sprint trying to manage those temperatures, because when they get hot like this, the rear end gets very floppy, very loose, using all of the overtake battery we have access to keep Hamilton at bay. We are down to 44% to start this lap. So a little bit of a mistake there cost us first and second. We figured we were going to lose them eventually, but we wanted to hold on to that advantage as long as we can. Now down in third place, still struggling with rear end grip. These tires are absolutely cooked. I'm going to try and ease them in as much as I can, but we've only lost about 3 degrees Celsius at the moment. We saw Hamilton approaching on the outside there, gave him the space to not cause an accident, but he does not try to complete the move. We're going to power out on a compromised line, which might have been his long-term plan here. Going into the S's, rear tires hot, not super worried about it. We kind of plant them into the ground purely off of speed, the downforce pushing the car into the track there, and trying the section where it all went wrong last time. Easy on the throttle, ease out of it. Utilize all of the track without compromising your line, and that was a hell of a lot smoother and easier than the last time. See what happens when we don't mash the throttle like a child. We don't die. But going into the carousel part 2 on lap 4, as you can see, I told you the race was not with Verstappen and Norris. Those guys have already checked out. 2-second gap to Verstappen, almost 2.5, or a little bit over 2.5 to Norris, and Hamilton and Leclerc right behind us. Those are now the people we have to worry about. Even if we lose these positions, still in a point scoring position, as Hamilton not close enough to poke us coming into the end of that straight there. So one less lap to worry about in terms of fighting for points, and that is exactly what we were going for here. Obviously qualifying in such a high position, just staying with the pack the best we can, running wide on the final.
Look out for a bit of understeer when trailing the car ahead. They're going to be giving off dirty air, which is going to affect our tyres, so try to get past.
Yeah, so dirty air from the car ahead, and warm tires. Understeer, definitely a problem here. You see me go off track a couple times here, but holding decent position. We have built a second gap to Hamilton over the hairpin, or carousel that is, and if we can keep it like this, we will be in a fantastic place. As you see, I didn't see it happen, but Verstappen passed Norris at some point during that last sequence, and like I said, again, our fight is not with them. At this point, I have decided, let's check out, lock in, keep the Ferraris at bay as long as we can, because if we can lock in third place in a sprint here, that would be fantastic. But as you can see, lap 8 is now what we are on, and there's a good reason for that. We managed to hold pace to the best of our abilities for pretty much the entire sprint, but like I said, we are not truly racing with this guy. As you can hear from our engineer right now, we are going to start losing tire grip, and we most definitely were. You saw me checking the MFD for the life of the tires because they were cooked. Our earlier almost death spin that we had to save cooked our rear tires early, and I have felt that pain the entire sprint. Rear end grip has just been worse than everyone else this entire time because of what we did. However, and managed to hold position because, as you can see, Russell has wedged himself between the 2 Ferraris, and their fighting has given me the opportunity to push as hard as I can just to stay in front of these guys while they fight with each other and lose pace. However, coming in to the penultimate lap here, Hamilton has sort of distanced himself from Russell just a little bit to give himself some free air and mind his own race, and an exit mistake on the first carousel instantaneously sees that gap close down. Hamilton was definitely told it's hammer time because he has been gaining on us like crazy. He started this lap with a little over a second gap, and now going into the S is just half a second separate us. So not only is his pace rapid, but we know we're on the worst tires. It's looking like it's not going to end well for us, but our goal now is to hold all 3 of these cars at bay as long as possible, because going from 3rd to what would eventually be, I believe, 7th is not what we want here. Unless my math is wrong here, I could be dumb, but I believe that would put us in 7th or 6th place. And going into the second carousel, That is exactly what we were thinking of, is again, the rear tires just absolutely zero grip, especially in the low speed scenarios. Pushing onto the back straight here.
Use your overtake button.
We're being
It's
told
time
to use the
utilise
overtake
some
from
of
the
this energy
engineer, and we
now.
did have a lot of energy, but that was planned. We don't have access to the DRS, so we're going to use overtake down the entire back straight. Gets us about 3 to 4 miles an hour extra than what we can achieve without it, and over the course of the kilometer-long back straight, that's a pretty big difference in terms of the gap. As you can see, Hamilton's still behind about half a second. It fluctuates a little bit on a per-turn basis, but he's realistically about half a second behind us, with Russell right behind him and Leclerc right behind Russell. So we know if we lose
Okay,
one
this is
position
your
here,
final lap of the
we
race.
might lose quite a few. And we see Hamilton going down the inside, not even going to bother defending that. Like I said, no point in wasting extra time trying to fight all three of these guys at once. If Hamilton goes through, so be it. We are still on for 4th place. The podium in the sprint would have been incredible, but we want points. We want to finish the race. Let Hamilton go through. We've kept him at bay as long as possible. And as you can see, we are still fighting with rear end grip. You see Russell moving around behind us. That little white arrow indicates his position on the track, and he is hunting for an overtake. He knows that we are slower, and we just have to drive as hard as we can right now. Hopefully, Leclerc can show some pressure to Russell, cause him to go defensive more than offensive on me, and that will give us the breathing room we need to just take this home in P4. We see Hamilton right above us. His pace is strong. At this moment, I'm not even thinking about overtaking Hamilton. In fact, I kind of wish he would drive into the sunset and give me some cleaner air, but at the moment, we're going to make do with what we can do. Rear tires haven't cooled down just a little bit over the course of this lap. We just need to hold it together for the carousel section. I have faith that we can brake hard into this final section right at the end of the back straight and hold whatever position we are in that moment. So patience out of the carousel, battery on early as possible, charge down. Gap to Russell just 3/10 going over this DRS lane, so we know he's going to be right behind us. You see the arrow approaching on the rear end. 207 miles an hour with Russell thinking about the move for a second. For some reason, backs out of the dive bomb on the final lap, and we are going to crab walk our way to what is going to be 4th place in the sprint in China. Running a little wild on the outside line, does not matter. Crossing the line, P4.
Okay, pick up rubber and bring it home.
Pick up rubber and bring it home. Where is the excitement? P4. Best we could have achieved today. Probably pretty accurate. We knew qualifying P2 was nothing short of a miracle, and finishing P4 in the sprint. What a way to earn our first points in Formula One. The fictional podium pass that we do not care about. Showcasing some XP that we learned. Like I said, we do not care about. Let's go ahead and look over the results of the sprint. And boy, am I excited, huh? First points in Formula One. And as you can see, a top 10 finish for Sainz as well, but in the sprint, points are only given to the top 8, so unfortunately not a double point scoring weekend for Williams. However, this is not the big one. This is not the big race. We still have actual race qualifying to go. And we got P2 our first go around. Now that we've had the practice, we know what we can do on this track. I think, dare I say, we could push for pole.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Yeah. So, qualifying for the big time did not go how we wanted it to. I guess everybody having access to soft tires the entire time didn't have that element of surprise. And when people started practicing on those softs, it did not end well. So Sainz managed to qualify in the top 10, P8 to start with. He's looking good for a point-scoring race. However, we are way down the order, and we're going to go ahead and see how qualifying pans out for the actual result. Carlos not locking into that P8 there. And quite the mountain to climb ahead of the actual race here in China. But we're going to try our absolute hardest because this is a race known to produce some crazy effects. I mean, Alex Albon went from P20 to, I believe, P10 at this track. So as long as we're not P20, we look like it is possible for us to score some points, and that is exactly what we are going to try for. I will see y'all out on the grid.
The Chinese Grand Prix then is upon us once again. It's a race that saw Michael Schumacher claim his final Formula One victory in 2006, as well as Red Bull's first win with Sebastian Vettel in 2009. There's no doubt there's plenty more drama to come here in Shanghai. Shanghai International Circuit then is a 16-corner high-speed thrill ride. The long and ever-tightening right-hander at turns 1 and 2 tests a driver's patience, and the flat, open to the elements location test their skill in a crosswind. 2 DRS zones will assist passing, and they're available into turn 1 and down the kilometre-long back straight into turn 14. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Russell, Yuki Tsunoda, and Hamilton, Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Antonelli, and Pierre Gasly, Lawson, Stroll, Nico Hülkenberg, and Ocon, Bortoletto, Davies, Ollie Behrman, and Jack Doohan. Hadja and Oscar Piastri rounds off the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway.
Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
And we are going to try our absolute hardest to not let you down, Mr. Engineer. Looking over the strategies, the one stop, definitely the more favorable strategy here, in my opinion. Even with safety cars, this track doesn't have many actual turns. I think there's only 16 over the course of the entire lap. So managing this tire race on one set of hards, finishing it off on the medium with a lighter car and fuel load, easy, lock it in, no need to make a fuss. Let's see how the race goes. All right, so lights coming up. We're going to hold our revs to the best of our ability. Try to get a good launch, starting all the way down in 16th. We got to play the long game. No need for silly business off the start here. But you see Ocon going to the right-hand side, leaving a gap in the middle of the track. We are going to slot our way inside. Incredible start from Ocon. I think he just made 3 places right there if he can hold this inside line. We see Sainz right in front of us, quite a few positions up in P7. No way we make it up to him over the course of this corner. So again, play it slow. We've got a long race ahead of us, creeping through the opening carousel section, just feathering the throttle, waiting to bite it as soon as I can, and then getting out just like this, slotting in behind Alonso and Stroll. Hopefully some infighting ahead will cause some struggles as Bortoletto thinks about a move on the outside. He goes ahead and brakes early. We're again going to hold his inside line, and if we can kind of shut the door on him on the exit here, which we do, yeah, go ahead and slot in front of him there. Going into the S's section, we can say that 14 is our actual starting position. The first lap kerfuffle is out of way. Any incident now is purely on us. So slotting into 14th place here, already making up 2 off the start. We're looking in a good place. Now, early goings here, stuck behind Alonso and Stroll, losing the rear end of the place that I've done it many times this weekend. Exactly what the engineer started. Start was okay, look for threats around us, and Alonso kind of leaving the door open. We kind of left the track there, but the door was open. We took the dive bomb, and going into the carousel, that is another position made on the opening lap. That is 3 positions up on the opening lap. Now slotting in behind Stroll here. We're going to use our overtake battery, try to make up some ground. Again, no DRS in lap 1, so it's pure pace, and it looks like the Williams this year is a little bit faster in a straight line than the Aston, because I don't think Alonso gained nearly as much space on me as I did on Stroll right there. Hard braking into the final little hairpin of the circuit, just creeping out. And you'll notice, especially now that we're in the longer race, watch the exit of that corner right there. Not the corner going in or at the end of the long straight, but the subsequent one. The exit of that corner, for some reason, I have on lock compared to the AI here this weekend. And you will see me kind of opt out of the huge dive bomb into the hairpin and instead hold position or overtake on the exit, because I'm able to get on the power significantly earlier than these guys. Maybe it's just because the difficulty is still, I believe, in the low 80s for this video, but we're making it work for now. Again, a little bit of understeer coming out of this carousel, and we're just going to slot in behind Stroll here and let the race come to us and see if anything exciting happens until we gain positions either through the pit stop or on track. And as you can see, huge back straight at the end of lap 3. We have gained a little bit of distance on Stroll after he separated from us for a couple laps there. But going into the hairpin, he stays in line with everyone else, and the door stays wide open. We slot in there, absolutely no contact. Just don't think he expected us to absolutely send it through there. And that is another position made on track. Now in P12, nobody has pitted. Are we on pace for another point-scoring race? Gap the teammate ahead 2 seconds, and we know that he is well within the point-scoring position. So, quite the motivation now, if there wasn't already enough, to push as hard as we can, because the points in back-to-back events are right on our fingertips. We know we just got to keep this car in line. The pace is obviously here with us this weekend, and if we put everything together, it looks like we are in for a fantastic result, but let's see if anything else happens. All right, so end of lap 6. Lawson has made a move onto Ocon in the lap prior, and we are now right behind Ocon, gaining time and distance on Ocon over the course of the back straight. However, not tremendous amounts. Now, he is still somewhat in a train, which throws his racing line off. I hit the braking at the normal braking zone, slot right behind him, and just absolutely mash it on the exit. I don't know if his tires are... Oh, yes. Top left corner, Ocon is on softs. End of lap 6, those tires are gone. So, exit grip coming out of that huge hairpin at the end of the back straight was significantly better on my end, and we're just going to go ahead and take that position all day long. And we're going to go ahead and go to later on the lap, towards the end of the S's section. I caught Lawson, and watch his exit on this corner. Massive drift, Tokyo drift from Lawson there, and as cool as that looks, his rear tires are now very overheated, similar to what happened to us in the sprint, and now a lockup going into the corkscrew section. You know what I'm talking about. He had a huge lockup right after that massive drift. I know his tires are cooked. Now, overexcitement from me immediately sees me overcook my rears and lose all of that gap. Now, his lockup and his sustained drift were definitely more detrimental to his tires, which is what I wanted to point out, because going into the braking zone of this section, had I not cooked it at the end of the carousel section, that probably would have been an overtake right there, but I did. But I know, in the long run, his tires took a lot more damage there than mine did. His hards are most likely in much worse condition than mine. And when we got the pass on Ocon, he was on very old softs, and we're going to have that grip advantage all day. However, I feel like a lot of people need to understand that, especially in these very long Grand Prix, you have to play the long game sometime. Every position counts, and I know there's no way Lawson is going to recover the temperature and the damage done in a single lap of soft driving, and I'm right on his tail. So, throughout the entire course of this lap, I know I still have the tire advantage for at least another 3 or 4 laps. Engineer coming in to tell us we're in the top 10, which is true. However, quite a few people have made their first round of pit stop, so this is not our true position. But all that matters to me right now is Lawson. I'm nursing my tires. He's building a little bit of a gap that I plan to make back up in the S's section. I've noticed that I kind of take this one a little bit quicker than the AI does, so biding my time, staying out of the dirty air. I know his tires are still cooked, and going into the braking zone at the end of the S's, you see I make that position, or that ground, right back up. And now this is where he spun it last time, so most likely not going to happen again. He's nervous, but look at the distance. Boxes lap call does come in, and we're going to go ahead and go hard on the brakes and into the carousel. And at this moment, I'm thinking, what do I need to box for? There's no way I'm going on the mediums for 20 laps. So we're going to pull a little bit of rookie ignorance and just straight up ignore our racing engineer, because we know
your pit window will be open in 7 laps time.
That's what happened. Yeah, that might have been a glitch in the game. The game is still very new. I went ahead and double checked with the engineer when I was supposed to box. But look at this, playing the long game. Look at how much of a crawl Lawson's exit is on this corner. His rear tires are still hooked, having to absolutely nurse those rear tires out of that final section, and we're just going to abuse that grip advantage all day long. And even better music to our ears, engineer says no tire concerns at the moment. So we are still strong in pace, hunting Kimi Antonelli on mediums, most likely the point where we're going to hit a little bit of a wall in terms of how much ground we can make up, because those Mercs and Ferraris, they're, I guess, in the middle stages. We'll call them the upper middle class of Formula One this year, because they are not the dominant force they used to be, but they are still quite a threat. And Mercedes on mediums is going to be very difficult to catch. We'll see how the race unfolds. Jumping ahead all the way to lap 12, had a couple laps to myself there, just breaking the gap from Lawson. And as you can see in front of us, despite my lack of confidence to catch Antonelli and Hamilton, they have been fighting consistently this entire time. Both when I checked the race replay and from the little bit that I saw of them ahead of me while going back through the footage, they've basically been battling this entire time, which is awful for their race strategy, because even me and a Williams have caught them in just a matter of laps. And they are still continuing to fight. I have put my pedal to the metal. You see, I've built a 5-second gap to Lawson, so I've still been very strong with pace. But these guys are fighting way too hard, allowing me to catch up. And now that I'm in their DRS zone, I'm just going to be able to piggyback off their incredible pace and maybe get an overtake if they continue to play this kind of dumb, to be completely honest. Their infighting has lost them so much time, not only to the leaders, but to the back markers like me, giving me this chance for easy on-track overtakes, which is ideally where you want to take them. Especially before my pit stop, I'll take any advantage I can get. You see, going into the handbrake and into the huge braking zone, Antonelli thinks about the move on Hamilton in the inside. They're going to fight the entire way into this corner, compromise both of their exits. We're going to stick to the inside, patience on the throttle, pin it, overtake open, and that is a double overtake in a Williams over Mercedes and Ferrari. 100% clean. I mean, what are they doing? Hamilton's going to bite back on us with the DRS that we do not have access to, but that was still a double overtake into what is still going to gain us one position on track. Antonelli going absolutely banana monkeys on the inside. No idea what he thought he was doing. The gap was definitely not there, at least for in my opinion. But we keep the inside line at the end of the carousel, and now, focusing on our exit, it seems that Antonelli not okay with us trying to take that position from him, but he's on very old mediums, and I think the damage that might have transpired there might have just kind of messed with my floorboards, whereas he will have most definitely hurt his front wing. I have confidence that we can keep him behind, but like I've said many times in this video, let's see what happens. And lap 15, jumping into the first and only pit stop of the race. As you can see, Leclerc no longer with us. RIP Ferrari. His weekend is gone. And just showing the current track positions as we go into the pits here. I told you that our top 10 position was not really a true reflection of where we were after the pit stops, but you see on the pit exit, we're still fighting right here in 11th on the pit exit. If we can stay in front of Hülkenberg and Antonelli on the exit, we will be even better, and it looks like we do manage to keep them behind us. So, out of the pit exit, Alonso 7 seconds ahead of us, with Antonelli and Hülkenberg right behind us. However, we are in a significantly lighter car with fresh mediums. We are going to see what we can do and maybe bounce back for a points finish here, but it's China. Crazy things have happened already, and the race is really only a little over halfway over, so let's see what happens. Jumping back on board at the end of lap 16, I know we were talking about our track position after the pit stop, so going into the huge braking zone at the end of the back straight there, again, testing the braking zone. You see me stop a little shallow there. I'm on a new set of tires. I wanted to get a gauge for how the car is feeling, and if you look at the track map in the bottom left, you'll notice quite a few people making some pit stops that I thought they had already taken, and we are going to jump from just outside the points all the way up to, let's see where we come out here, 6th place, ahead of Tsunoda and Hamilton. However, they are both on fresher tires. We hold track position, and there is at least one person between us on the worst tire. Kimi Antonelli, a threat at the end of the race should these mediums fall off, but at the moment, Tsunoda and Hamilton seem like the bigger threat. I don't really think the hards are the tire to be on coming into the end of this Grand Prix, because these mediums hold up quite well, and they give you access to a lot of grip. As you can see already, Antonelli 4/10 behind me, and his tires are not warm, but the gap just springs forward on the exit of these corners. Gains a little bit back, and then throughout the corners, you see me already building pretty much a second here in this S's section. So I'm assuming Tsunoda and Hamilton are going to be our main targets here. However, there are no more pit stops to be had, at least any that are going to do something to hurt me. So, at the moment, engineer coming in to tell us to use more overtake. We will definitely be doing so, because we are now fighting for another points finish, and a good one at that. You see Sainz up there in P4 with Ocon behind him, a little over a second gap to him and Ocon on the better tire, but a huge gap to me. This could be a fantastic double points finish on the big day for Williams, but it all depends on me and Carlos holding it together to the end. We'll see what happens. And jumping forward towards the end of lap 20, trying our absolute hardest to keep the gap. You can now see we are in P4. Ocon and Sainz, turns out, had not made their final pit stop, gaining us even more positions. Unfortunate for Sainz, he dropped quite a few, but the real reason we came back on board here is because Tsunoda eventually catching back up to us and grabbing that position. Now, are we incredibly butthurt about that? No, we are in a Williams in P5. If we lose the position to a Red Bull, we're going to take that, but continuing to push as much as we can without just completely jeopardizing our race, because P5 is still a fantastic result, and we've got almost a second gap to Hamilton behind.
Your teammate behind, 16.0 seconds.
16.06 seconds is the gap to Sainz behind us, making it sound like he's no longer in the points, unfortunately. I can't see the track map all the way down there, but I don't think he's in the points at the moment. So unfortunate news. What went to great for the team has turned into okay to the team and fantastic for me, which is a double-edged sword. Currently still in P5. Hamilton with a gap right behind us. You see his little arrow moving behind. He definitely thought about a dive bomb into this corner, but he's going to go ahead and opt out of it, which is smart. Turn 6 is a deceivingly bad overtaking opportunity. If you have that inside line on the overtake, you're going to be shoved to the outside over the SS section, and it's just not going to end well for you. So Hamilton doing the 7-time world champion move and deciding to bow out of that overtake. He is most definitely in the faster car, and the place that we both know is our opportunity to lose it or gain it is going to be this back straight. So I'm preparing.
Use overtake.
Engineer telling us to prep overtake in an attempt to pass Tsunoda, which could definitely be useful to keep Hamilton off of our back. However, I'm just focusing on myself at the moment. Prioritize my exit, get the car and the power down as early as possible. You saw me turn the battery on midway through the carousel. If I have DRS, I'll turn it off, which I do. Go ahead and save the battery there. Use the DRS to propel the car. 205, a little over that. 207 miles an hour into the braking zone, hard at the 150. Actually go on the inside of Yuki there just because he hit his brakes way earlier than I thought, and I went to the inside just to not hit him. A little bit of contact there. Switch back on the exit. Thought about a risky move there again, deciding to bow out. I do not want to throw away a position for a risky overtake.
The car ahead, but remember, we need to get to the end of the race on these tires.
Engineer coming in telling us to be careful with the tires. That's not necessarily him saying they're in bad shape, just a little reminder, hey, they do have to get to the end of the race. But we've only got 6 left, and they felt fine at the moment. And stuck into our little race here once again. We've got another lap to try and just manage our distance to Tsunoda. Stay out of the dirty air, but close enough for DRS is the ideal window. However, significantly easier said than done, especially when you've got a 7-time world champion breathing down your neck behind you. That arrow behind us is ever so intimidating, knowing that he is right there. And I'm sure Tsunoda, in some way, feels the same threat. I'm sure we're not as intimidating, but a mistake is a mistake, and we have passed him before, so we're all 3 of us monitoring our pace over this section. You see Antonelli behind us kind of just falling off. I told you the hards were not the tire to be on for the end of this race, and that's proving correct. The gap now 4 seconds to Antonelli. We have pretty much just checked out from him, and I believe he's also under pressure from another Red Bull. Maybe that sign, whatever that dark blue dot is, that is who is right behind Antonelli, giving him all kinds of pressure. But we, slotting into the carousel once again, very far behind Tsunoda. If we lose DRS hill, it's DRS here. It's not looking good for keeping Hamilton behind. Almost a second gap to Hamilton, but the DRS can close that down, and somehow we still have DRS. I need to pay attention to where the detection zone is for the DRS, because we were way behind Tsunoda at the end of that straight, going a little too deep on the brakes there, having to catch the car, getting right back behind Tsunoda because of it. No need to worry about tire condition for now. Talk about contradicting yourself. The engineer is sending very mixed signals, which is why sometimes I decide to just focus on my own race and drive no matter what they tell me. And slotting in here, we are actually forming a little bit of a gap to Hamilton. I didn't think it was going to work, but us trying our absolute hardest to hold on to Yuki's DRS has actually netted us pace over Hamilton. His gap is falling off. So apparently, a Williams trailing a Red Bull is faster than a Ferrari. Noted. And we took that note only for it to bite us in the ass anyways. As you can see, towards the end of the exact same lap, basically just skipping the S's section, on the exit of the corner that has plagued us all weekend, rear tires on the curb, absolutely trying our best to save the car. That was the definition of a brown pants moment. And as you can see now, going into the carousel, rear tires are warm. Hamilton just shreds that gap, and Tsunoda absolutely sends us out of his DRS range. And we are just going to be a sitting duck going down this back straight. You see now, turning on the overtake battery as early as we can to try and save ourselves. But Hamilton behind is just shredding that gap. Here he comes along the right-hand side, and he is gone. Absolutely nothing that we can do about salvaging that position. But glass half full, he's still right here. We know we wouldn't beat. I'm not going to try anything on this corner right here and even further stress the rear tires. It's about time to just nurse these things home. But the reality of the situation is we're in a Williams. There's a Ferrari in front of us with great pace. If we can keep him in front and just keep his toe, keep his DRS, that gap to Lawson is probably going to continue to grow and most definitely not magically vanish. And we can manage a pretty guaranteed P6 in a Williams. And that is exactly what we are going to try and do. And as you can see, lap 28, the final lap, our prediction rang true. Now, Hamilton did manage to build a gap on us as Lando Norris wins the Chinese Grand Prix, and we completely ignore the exit of turn 10, as we had many times this weekend. But if it ain't a flag, we're going to keep doing it. And as you can see, almost 3-second gap to Hamilton and about a 3-second gap to Lawson. So even once we lost Hamilton's toe, managed to just keep a consistently better pace than Lawson. You know, track position ended up paying off well there because he didn't necessarily gain or lose. And on this final lap, I'm just nursing it home, just absolutely melted. You're going to see that gap to Lawson go down a little bit because I'm not risking it, because the rear tires on these mediums towards the end of this race felt very dead. I mean, you're going to see me just crawl out of this final corner. I'm taking absolutely zero chances. Lawson's going to shred that gap down, but it's managed. We know what's going on here. Cutting that middle corner in the end in an attempt to nurse it home, but all that matters is P6.
And that's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Ferme.
Yes, you will indeed see us in Parc Ferme. Yeah, Team Boss says he thinks that's the best we could have achieved today, and I will most definitely take that. That is 10 places made up over the course of the race from P16 to P6.
Winner has Landoed. It's Lando Norris for victory.
Right, so great win for McLaren. We, hopefully we'll be up there on the podium one day. You see the final podium is Lando, George, and Max. Quite the mixed podium for sure, but the real thing that we want to look at is right here. Yes, the standings. 5th place for us. Unfortunately, not double point scoring for the entire weekend, but as you can see, Sainz managed to snag P10 towards the end of that race, making it a double points finish in the race. And over the course of the weekend, 14 points to the teams. And the majority from me, but Carlos definitely contributed. And what a weekend for the Williams team, especially, if this were real life, that would be even better. Driver standings currently puts me 8th in the championship. Great place to be. Carlos down to 14th, and we currently sit P6 in the constructors. We need to get a little bit of an edge up over Aston Martin if we want to finish in 5th like my ultimate goal was. But weekend 2, race 2, fantastic for us. That was not a sophomore slump. That was a sophomore success story. You see us shaking our fist right with that. What is that smile? All right, so besides EA doing their best to make my character look like a serial killer, it was a great weekend from us. Got the edge up over Sainz, a lot of valuable points for the team. It's looking like a good start. I don't want to get too excited, but this looks like this series is going to be quite entertaining. Might bump up the difficulty just a little bit. I don't want this to be happening all the time, at least our first season at Williams, but it's looking fantastic. Hopefully Carlos can manage to get a little bit more lucky with the strategy and not retiring, and really boost this team to everything that it can be. But at the moment, as you see, things are looking fantastic. And for those of you that made it to the end of the episode, thank you so much. I know that these F1 episodes are quite long, especially when they're sprint weekends, so I appreciate you guys making it all the way to the end. And for those of you that are still here, I have a mission for you. That's right, if you're still here, I'm talking directly to you, this guy still watching this video. Comment down below how you feel about the pacing, the overall speed of these videos. Too little, too many replays? Do you want to see more third person? Do you want to see more laps or just the highlights? Let me know. The channel's still small. I'm seeing all the comments, and the series is still only on the 2nd episode, so we can change the feng shui and flow as much as we want. But going back to the crib, that is going to be the end of this episode. I thank you guys so much for stopping in to watch this one. As always, I really appreciate you guys being here, and feel free to heel toe that like and subscribe combo. I'm CD Racing. This is our Formula 1 career, and it's only going to get better. And of course, I will catch you in the next one.